Dr Alan Mendoza is the Executive Director of the Henry Jackson Society. That's the security and foreign policy think tank. Thanks very much for joining us. It's fair to say you would tend towards intervening in the name of liberal democracy as a think tank. So I'm assuming you would say on this occasion, yes, it's right to go for it. Why would you say that?
Well, in this case, we're not looking to bring liberal democracy in by this intervention. I think what we're looking for with a vote in favour today, which, as your correspondent says, is likely to happen, we're looking firstly at regularising a situation where British planes are bombing ISIL targets in Iraq, but are not doing so next door in Syria. So we're merely regularising that process. And secondly, we're showing a sense of solidarity with our allies and a reflection and an acknowledgement that we need to burden share with them against the threat that does indeed threaten all of us here in the West and indeed in the Middle East region.
Right, but you'd acknowledge, would you, that it will make little, if any, material difference to the firepower, to the effort in terms of airstrikes?
Oh no, it'll make some difference. We have advanced we have advanced capabilities in this country. We're one of the leading military powers in the world. Of course, it's going to make some difference, but the importance is collective as opposed to individual. Yes, you're right. This intervention is not going to tip the balance, and in many ways, that's why it's so surprising this debate has caused so much, heat and light in Westminster. We're talking about a tactical adjustment. That is all.
The trouble is, I suppose, the heat and light, or the heat rather than the light, whichever way you want to look at it, comes from the fact that Britain is one of the countries that has had its fingers burned, and burned badly, for lack of strategy behind a military move. Can you see a strategy here that makes this different?
Well, firstly, we're merely doing what we're doing already in Iraq. In Iraq, we're bombing the same targets that we will be bombing in Syria. Now, what we've been doing in Iraq is working with ground forces, not our ground forces, but other ground forces, to help in the ground offensive against ISIL. Now, we all know that if we're going to beat ISIL, we're going to need some component of ground troops to do so. What I believe will start happening here is greater coordination with ground forces in Syria as well, such as the Kurdish forces, to help push ISIL back.
Right, that's an interesting point. Obviously, we know about the American Special Forces. We had more from Ashton Carter, the Defence Secretary, in the course of Tuesday, explaining what their role would be into Syria. And we've heard senior military figures on this side of the Atlantic saying, yes, boots on the ground is going to have to happen. Do you think that this move, if the vote is in favour of airstrikes, is just one of further moves which still have to come for Britain?
Well, I think, as with all such moves, you make the move and then you judge the impact. If the impact is found to be insufficient, then we will probably indeed have to have further conversations about the subject. But that will again come before the House of Commons. Doubtless there'll be a full national debate about it, and that'll be quite an important component in deciding whether to take the strategy forwards.
I suppose one of the issues surrounding all this at the moment is that it was 2 years ago that there was a vote in Parliament about taking airstrikes on Syria against President Assad, and now it's talking about taking strikes against President Assad's enemy. And that is a difficult sell, isn't it, to the British people?
Well, I think the debate 2 years ago was about something completely different. It was about the use of chemical weapons by Mr. Assad. Today's debate is about attacking a group of terrorists who have proven and shown they have continued capability and intent to attack us here in the West. As such, it's a much easier sell than the first.
OK, Alan Mendoza, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed.